So, what do you think here? The latest, John Zogby's take on this is a huge October surprise, and does not know that Hillary Clinton can survive it. What's your take?
Well, I think certainly it's not ideal for her or her campaign. I think the challenge with this particular development is that there's so much unknown. It's not even known if these emails have been already examined in the FBI's previous investigation. But certainly from the standpoint of the campaign, answering related questions, dealing with this when Clinton thought it was put to bed is not good. But I think still polling in the battleground states is significantly in her favor. 20 million people have already voted in early voting, and that seems to indicate that she's doing pretty well from what we know about that. So whether it fundamentally changes the race, I don't think so necessarily, but certainly it could, and it depends what happens this week in terms of how the FBI proceeds and what they find.
And right, but we don't at this point know. I mean, what if they come out and release something on Thursday? What if today's the day or tomorrow? I mean, you just don't know that they. I mean, couldn't they, the FBI, say, well, listen, we haven't gone through all of them, but we found this gem, and we've decided to release information on this. I mean, I guess it's possible, right?
Well, I think it was a controversial decision by the FBI director to come forth, given that it's not clear what he knows. And I think we've seen a bipartisan effort to request strongly more information, because particularly senators, representatives think it's unfair to the American people that sort of this has been broadly shared, but the investigation still hasn't taken place on the new emails that were secured. So, I think we'll probably see from the pressure within members of government on both sides of the aisle some greater insights this week. Chuck Grassley, the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, requested by Friday that some more information be given to Congress. So I would think, given the pressure, Comey would have some type of statement or explanation or further update, but it's hard to tell for sure.
Isn't it dangerous for Hillary Clinton to be saying, "Get it out there, let's get it out before the election"? I mean, she might want to be careful what she's asking for, right?
Well, I can't comment on that because I don't know what's in there. We don't even know if these emails have been looked at before. I mean, the FBI is a computer program they're going to use to sort through that. I mean, I think from her perspective, it's not necessarily a bad idea if she thinks that she has nothing to hide and that she didn't break the law, and the FBI already said that. I mean, that's a reasonable public posture, but as you point out, there is risk with that, of course.
And wouldn't it be funny, though, and somewhat ironic, and if we go through this election cycle, and the only server that hasn't been broken into is the one that Hillary Clinton set up at her house? Because right now, that's not been hacked, as far as we know.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a new realm of security concerns in regards to cybersecurity, sort of unprecedented efforts, most likely by the Russian government to intervene in the election. So yeah, it's a whole new realm of security, and then a whole new level of intrigue, and it's one of the many unique things about this campaign, of course.
Well, the good news is that Donald Trump already knows exactly what's in the emails. He knows exactly what the FBI is doing, and he's figured it all out, and he's telling his supporters all of what's happening. Yeah. So I think we're good to go then.
Well, obviously, he's going to try to maximize this opportunity, as I think any candidate would. I mean, as a political scientist who cares greatly about American government, I think, particularly in this campaign, the well-being of the system as a whole has been kind of overshadowed by the players trying to pursue their own interests. And so I wish everybody would think a little bit more about what works well about American government compared to other parts of the world, and put that first all the time. And I get it. After campaigning for 2 to 3 years, it can be tough to do that. But that concerns me most about this campaign. Yeah. We have a very effective government compared to other parts of the world, some of which I've lived in, and unfortunately that's been cast into question in different ways that really it's just a product of the campaign and people trying to
you can't come in and win an election if you're really going against an incumbent and say, hey, everything's great. And when I say going against an incumbent, Hillary Clinton is basically a part of the Obama administration. So that's what Trump is running on. So if he comes out and says everything's great, then what's he running for? So clearly he's going to say things are bad. But with Trump, it's not only bad, it's the worst it's ever been in the history of America. That's how he describes it. And when you look around and you really compare it to times throughout history, are we really that bad off today? And are we so much worse off today than we were 50 years ago, 20 years ago?
Well, I would say no. I mean, I tell my students they're living at a unique moment in American history where America is at one of its highest points of global power and influence. So, obviously, power shifts over time. We've seen that through world history. So, there are a lot of challenges that our countries face. We're coming out of, as everybody knows, one of the worst recessions in U.S. history. So that's painful and that's hard, and that takes time for everybody to feel the recovery, even though the economy's been growing for several years. In terms of Donald Trump, certainly I think hyperbole is part of his campaign approach, and so is sort of a personal brand of politics like we've never seen before. So I think it's had effectiveness. He's gathered a significant base who's very enthusiastic on his behalf. I think his challenge is whether he can expand that base to get enough votes for to win the election.
No matter who wins, talking, by the way, to Dr. Luke Perry from Utica College, no matter who wins, what does it all look like after election? After the election?
That remains uncertain as well. I think it's a great question. I mean, Donald Trump has not made clear that he will accept the results, and so I mean I've been really kind of intrigued by if he loses, what will happen there. I think if Hillary Clinton loses, she's very likely to accept the results, and so I think that's an important turning point, right? I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's another week. I can't wait for it to be over," and it may drag on in that regard, which would also be kind of unique. But hopefully, it doesn't. Whoever loses accepts the results, and the country moves on. I think it's going to be very difficult for whoever's elected to govern because we're going to have divided government. It's been the norm for some time. So the idea that a new president's going to come in, Republican or Democrat, and change a whole bunch of things is a bit limited, just given the power dynamics. So I think we'll see more of the same. I
will tell you one thing along the lines of what you're saying. I spoke with someone close to a Bosnian American, a Utican, a Bosnian in Utica, who is now an American citizen, and it was all in on Trump. Until the moment Trump said, A, he wasn't going to accept the results, and B, he was going to lock her up after he went into office. At that point, he said, I can no longer vote for Donald Trump because it reminds me too much of what life was like in Yugoslavia, and sees it to be dangerous. Sometimes I think we just take everything for granted, and you talk about living elsewhere. We don't appreciate what we have here. And for this man who's lived in governmental turmoil, that was the line in the sand for him. Interesting.
I can understand that. I mean, for me, those aren't my personal experiences, but I research elections and write books on them, and I know the American election process well, and it meets the global standards for a healthy democracy in regards to elections. Now, I get that there's cynicism out there, and I get that there's concerns that people have, but in terms of the government process that dictates how our elections work, it works very well compared to most parts of the world. We have more elections than any other country in the world, and we have a long tradition of peaceful transfer of power. So, I mean, if you're familiar with other countries that don't have that tradition, or unfortunately you've experienced it yourself, it's a marked contrast, which is not a pleasant situation to be in.
Dr. Luke Perry, thanks so much. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.